What's up, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, day traders, cloud swing traders. Hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Hope you guys are feeling good. Hope you guys are feeling the opposite of AMD, a little bit more like AVGO today, a little less like Google, but SPY just kind of hanging out. So we will see. We got Albert in the house. Good morning to you. Good morning to Andy. We got Andy Walk in the house. Good morning to Carolyn D. Emily, JT, Keith, Lauren, Lucian, Marius. Good morning to Martina, Rick, Rob, Russ. Tim is in the house. All my people out in YouTube land. Leonard coming right back in, taking a crown back. First comment in YouTube. Good morning to all of you. Mustafa's in the house is number 2. Clarice 3. Ooh, the squadron's piling up. We got all my lurkers in the background of YouTube that just probably won't say anything the whole time. It's okay. I still love you. Hit that like and subscribe button. But yeah, GM. What's GM? I didn't see GM. Or is that just good morning again? Is that just good morning? GM hanging, chilling, the stock. But we'll see. We will see. Let's go back to the SPY. See how we're kind of surviving after we have a little bit more data from some earnings. Some companies came out, a couple of the big ones, specifically Google, and then AMD does its own thing as well. But you have SPY just pulling back a little bit. So earnings weren't. There was some companies that were good. I didn't even think the bad ones were really that bad. Some of the companies, Google, a little bit high up there for, I think they missed on revenue. They beat on earnings per share. Very, very difficult position to be in to miss on anything when you're up there. Unless you're Palantir, you could just skyrocket higher. But what's interesting on the chart is, and I already kind of drew a little bit of a downtrend. If you're kind of wondering, I think what the market is doing at this point, wouldn't that look a little bit more like a just big old pennant pattern? Big old pennant pattern as we just navigate politics, as we navigate through the markets, as we navigate to us either hitting all-time highs and breaking out, or this is the end of the world as we know it. We can start queuing up some REM. I don't know, but we are pretty much dead smack in the middle of that. And if this is a bull flag, we could get out of here. This is how I think this would probably end up looking. If again, this could be a while. This could be all of February. We just hang out here. If we get this, I think we eventually come back, and then that's how we look. Or if we break down, I think I'd be looking at something like this. So very difficult to tell at this point because we're just chopping, so we don't know which way we're going to break out of this thing. I think obviously some news will probably shift us into one direction or another, not the band, but you got SPY again, just flat in the middle. In terms of support resistance, well, we're below yesterday's VPOC. We kind of came up, we nailed this. We were in the 602 range, so we pretty much nailed that to almost a penny as to where we got to. We held it pretty much overnight till the earnings came back, and that's going to push us down a little bit. But today's resistance, we're going to see if we get back to the 601.34 zone. If we could recapture it, then we are looking at that 602 again. Again, we've been up there. We have a few more spots of resistance. If this little pennant pattern is decent, then I think an eventual move into like 604.66 again would just push us in the higher end of this range, but not saying that we have to come back up and kind of hit that again. If this pennant pattern, if we stay in here, yeah, that's going to take us right to the end of February and set us up for March. So still lots of time to consolidate. But if this is true, if this is where we're kind of just building this out a little bit, we know don't go long until you could break that, or this is the spot to at least go short. And if we are buying dips continuously, then you're trying to get long somewhere toward the bottom end of that range. So up, down, or sideways. Yeah, well, I think it's all three. I think it is all three. It's all up, down, but choose your spots for the up, choose your spots for the down, and just understand the whole thing is sideways. So yeah, I'm not looking to go up at the higher end of this pennant, and I'm not looking to go down at the lower end of this until it breaks, comes back, retests, get out of the shorts, and then play it to that direction. But yeah, essentially just a whole lot of nothing, and we're still off of a really good move. So just resting at all-time highs. To the support side of things, if we come down, I have one very, very weak one over here, 599.44. The next one decent 598.72, and then the better one. Um, well, the better one's still probably in this 597.77. That's going to be the stronger support. If that breaks, then we're down to the bottom of that channel, and that's going to take us into like 593.26. I don't know if that happens today, but I think a little bit of a tighter range inside today's candle, and then we'll kind of play it. So kind of in the middle of yesterday's candle with decent room for bulls, decent room for bears in either direction, and Shopfest City looks like to me. Unless we get some kind of news that could really break us out today. I don't know what's coming. We got some more Donald wants Gaza too now, Mustafa says. Yeah, no, this is that's the Trump power right there. That's crazy. Yeah, because everybody was out there, all the protesters were out there, they're like free Gaza, and then Trump is like, man, that's a real estate deal that they're chanting. Gaza is free? Yeah, he signed them up. So yeah, that he was just thinking about real estate. It was well, I thought it was the protest, but no, that was an advertisement. That was crazy. But yeah, so Trump Trump's looking to take over. God, man, every day there's like five, six news stories out of the White House. We got to get used to it. We're not used to it after the last 4 years. High flying administration. We will see. We got the Qs. PMI at 9:45 and 10. We got two PMIs coming out today. 9:45 a.m. and 10. Lucian saying PMI. I'm guessing 9:45 PMI and then maybe something else at 10. Otherwise, it's a redundant redundant report coming out at 10. I feel like we could play the one at 10 really good if we get a sneak peek at 9:45. Oh, we got final services at 9:45 and then ISM at 10. Got you. All right. Q, same thing. So I think we're just kind of in this little bit of a channel. You could almost draw this one out too. So you have some kind of downtrend like this, and you got some kind of uptrend, which actually probably goes back a little further, to be honest. The uptrend on this one, I don't know if I want to take that one, but it's close enough. Otherwise, you got support at 518.37, and then to the higher side, you got 523.63. And we're getting a little bit closer to the end of this pennant pattern. So SPY, we got some time. This one we only got to like February 11th, and then we're either in the tightest squeeze of our lives, or we finally can make that break one way or another. But just kind of hanging. Longer term, you're still sitting in this higher lows on the Q, so not at least the SPY was able to make almost a new higher high, but you are still kind of coming down longer term on this one. And we'll see if that momentum could actually start getting us some higher highs in here. I don't know. But yeah, for today, resistance would be yesterday's VPOC, so somewhere back to this 523.80 zone. I'm not loving where we're opening right now. We are into a little support, but would rather us open somewhere above 521.88 to establish a little bit stronger of a bull case for a bounce. Otherwise, extreme chop if we're above 521.35, but below 521.88. We break in either range of that, then or to the downside of that, we got 518.37 on the Qs. You guys are saying TLT was moving a little bit today. So yeah, a little decent move. We got some room. We have a good high wave candle over here. We took that out to the bear side. Finally establishing positions above it again. The next highest volume candle came on Monday, and we were taking that out too. So a little bit of a retest from yesterday, but starting to look like it's trying to gain a little bit of legs. My target on this one would take us up to about $90.13 for the immediate target, and then let's see if we could kind of push from there. Almost a little inverted head and shoulders too on TLT, so maybe some stability in the bond market, and then you can kind of look at some of the REITs, some of the O's of the world, even maybe in a small low-key, slightly related MPW situation, a little bit on the cheaper side of things. But some of those stocks might be able to find some legs. All right, if you got tickers, let me know. The first one I see is Enphase. So a little bit of energy to start today. More energy than Celsius could give us. Celsius is slowly dying a little bit. Enphase is gapping up. We got earnings. We got positive earnings. They beat earnings per share by 29%. That's pretty outstanding. And then they came in with a 5.54 million above expectations, reported 382 million. So not bad on the earnings report. Pretty clean double bottom on this one. Not bad, but it is a retest gap. I don't really see resistance for a little bit. Probably would run us up into, I think, 69.56. But again, not that far away from where we're at now. So maybe we get that pullback. Do I want a full retest into yesterday? That would take us to 66.28. This might be too good of a gap to get down there. See what happens at 67.40. And I think somewhere establishing a little position around 66.80 to 66.43 would be decent. Good bullish engulfing candle 2 days ago. And you did have a little follow through into or right ahead of earnings yesterday. So maybe some profit taking. Hopefully some profit taking, and then we could look to maybe take that as a trade. Might be a decent swing trade too, actually. Just good double bottom. You're gonna need a little bit of work to get through that neckline, but if you can get through it, it's got. I mean, we're very very close to 52-week lows, and longer term downtrends probably would take us up into like the $99.74 range. So again, even for a swing trade without breaking a longer term downtrend, that's a lot of room. It's almost $30. Really want to start seeing positions start to close above 80, and then you got your next little hesitation 84.60, and then yeah, nothing until 91.82, and then back up to 90 99.28ish. So could be interesting. Still a little bit choppy, but again, in this range at least, there's nothing. So let's see if we could get that drop first. The volume tells me we might be able to do a full on support from yesterday, but we'll move that up there. We'll see what that does. We got X. X had earnings a few days ago, January 30th. That was a miss on both fronts. Again, this is going to be more takeover news. So you could be in this thing and headlines come across and you get clapped down. So be careful of that. Otherwise, really good candle yesterday, opening today at the high end of that range into this resistance. Not a bad open. I don't think we get the immediate continuation at open. I think we do get a pullback on this one. And I think we'd be looking for like a 37.51. Maybe we get down to 37.41, but I kind of like it a little less if we do hit that. So I would like it a little bit better if we just hold this 37.50 range, and then you get your stops maybe somewhere 37.30 if you're going to try to take this one. But this would be an interesting rejection at open, pull back, and then watch it for a little bit later today. We'll put this one higher on the list as well. Otherwise, on a technical basis, it looks good. And then again, you're just kind of worried about news coming in and smacking you right down. Sleepy Joe couldn't get out of the basement. Lyra says U as in YOU or like the letter U, like Unity software. We'll pull up both. We'll see. Yeah, AMD. They're I don't think that report was that bad whatsoever. They pretty much beat on every front. You do have earnings per share that came in slightly higher. You have 125 million to the revenue side of things, or higher than expected on the revenue. I don't think it was that bad. I think we have almost a broken stock, not a broken company, and I think we've just been just cruising this down path. So I think if you could find like the YouTube that I did, the live YouTube, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't even give you a date, so it's probably hard to. But we were talking about AMD as it was somewhere in this range, and I was like, yeah, if we could get down to 107, I think that's the next bounce spot. Like I think we have room to get down there. Some of you guys might remember that, but we pretty much got right into 107. We slipped slightly past it, slightly past it. I think like 106.83 or something like that after hours. But this is an interesting support spot. We got some volume. If we start to lose this, the next target to the downside will take us to roughly about 102.02. And then you got $96 on the horizon for AMD. So tough gap. The fact that we are below that last little strong double bottom, that's weak. We do have a gap and go to the bear side. I think I'd be cautious trying to buy the dip on this one today. However, I like that longer term spot somewhere around 107. So maybe you get a quick little sell off and we could still look for some kind of support. Yeah, even this is actually 106.95. I don't hate it, honestly. I don't hate this one, especially if it's more of a longer term position. I think you probably have some immediate bulls maybe being trapped. Even the price action yesterday, the algo saw the report come out and we flew, right? We flew up to I think 126 we got to. And then whatever reason, they just started hating it. And then during the conference call, it was all the conference call I get a little bit more of that. So I listened to the whole thing when it was live. It sounds okay. It's just delayed. It's like, yeah, in the second half of this year, and immediate investors don't want to hear second half. They want some kind of immediate change, something really good today. So I think on a longer term basis, I think the company's fine. It's not going to zero. Valuation, I think, is probably what we're moving off of more, where the growth isn't really where you want to see this thing compared to where they're actual valuing it. But I would be very curious to see if we could hold this 107, start to see some kind of a bounce start to roll in a little bit. To the higher side for today, I would be looking for maybe about this 110 range, 110.17, if we could get up there. Otherwise, we're looking for almost a full-on retest into the prior VPOX into this back to the 114.60 zone. So I don't know if I want to short this one here. Unless we start really breaking through this 106.80 zone, and then we have a good little pop for another couple dollars. But I don't know. It's getting a little too low for me. I think this is relatively getting close to a buy zone, probably for a lot of people that want a pretty decent, solid company and at a fair price. I think you're starting to get there. You got Square XYZ. That looks like a heck of a head and shoulders. Almost double topped on that last shoulder. Momentum from yesterday to the downside. You still have sort of a longer term basis. Who knows? Longer term basis this kind of looks a little bit toppy. For today, if you get some continuation to the downside, I think your first target on this one would take us into 85.34. That being said, our support for today is 86.38. So decent selling, not quite hitting the actual targets where I think this thing can go immediately. If we start to lose 85.34, you probably got room at least until like this 83.91 and then back to like 83.47. So a little bit of room to the downside before we start hitting some of those moving averages. Right now, at least though, we're still hanging above yesterday's resistance. So even though on the daily chart kind of just looks a little choppy, maybe a little toppy, everything I say rhymes now apparently. But uh, look for some support around 86.36 if you're gonna try this thing bullish. I think it's okay to have a shot at 85.82 for a stop for day trade. Maybe that support holds. We could get a little bounce into like 87.27 on the bull side before we actually come down. So for right now, where this thing looks like it's opening, and we'll have to see. I think you do have a little risk to reward to a bull side, even though the daily looks a little tough. So probably looking for maybe a 1.2, something in that vicinity. Let me get this a little bit higher on the list. Get that one up here. All right. You clear secure. All right, let's see that one. Clear secure. Uh oh, I think we have some room. We have some support coming in on this one around 23.29. Really good support. Yeah, I have about 23.28. So I think we start breaking that down. There's nothing really holding us back until you're looking for about 21.89 for the first little hesitation. And I think longer term, the trend is kind of breaking. And then you got probably your next really good support down to like 21.52, somewhere in that zone. Obviously, we had a good pop on earnings. Next earnings didn't really do anything for us. You have The next upcoming earnings, February 26th. So you have to the end of the month. Not a bad bounce location if we're going to get it longer term. Wave count wise, I'm only looking at this thing going, this is probably your one, your two, your three. I wouldn't want to personally add this one, and I'd have to do a little bit more research on the actual company and revenues and things like that. But I don't think like it's not on my list to add to the long term. But if it was price wise, I think I'd rather be a buyer close to this 1940 than I would even here, because that's a decent amount of downside. Overall, it doesn't have that huge of a move, but interesting location, longer term support, not bad. If you could hang into this zone, great. If you do want to buy some shares for the long term, this is probably not the worst spot. You're not buying at all time highs. And then I think as soon as you start getting some candles that close 2290, you're gonna buy some puts, protect those, and you're pretty much gonna ride those down to like this 1945 zone for you. Day trade wise, again, I don't know how volatile this is. I don't know how much volume really comes in on this one. Um, Yesterday was a retest gap. You do have that little bit of longer term support. You're above yesterday's VPOC, but then you got resistance at 2351. And then until you really get past this 2363, then your next target for today would take you to about 2405. So I think you're in a little chop, although there was some slight bullish momentum gap up, retest gap. It did retest, and you just want to recapture this 2353, I think, to try to establish any type of position on that one in a bullish direction. Otherwise, we'll see if the Bulls can hold on to that last volume zone. Nvidia getting a gap up. I'm not really quite sure why. Maybe inverse AMD. Let's see if there's any news on this one. In fact, today Nvidia experienced a decline in value attributed to increased competition from yeah, that was thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, DeepSeek. DeepSeek wrote that article, which is crazy. That's so advanced. Supermicro ramps full production of Nvidia Blackwell. There you go. So there's the headline. So little news out of Supermicro. So we don't believe their earnings from Supermicro, but any headlines we're still on board with. Okay. Otherwise, good gap up here. Again, I was thinking maybe a little sympathy from like inverse sympathy of AMD people hating, so maybe they love Nvidia. I don't know. You get a retest gap. You are opening at resistance, so watch this 122.10. That should be immediate resistance. I think if you're trying to establish a position on Nvidia and want to try to play this one, I'd see if you get a pullback closer to about 120.19. Yesterday's VPOC 119.64. Challenge with that is you're slightly underneath that 200. So I see if this one could fade a little bit, especially if the market wants to pull back. Maybe get that fade and then look to establish that position. And then I think you have better chance of breaking that on the second move too. But we'll get NVIDIA up again. Let's be for me. I'd be a little patient on the entry. NVIDIA might be from Google saying they were going to increase AI capex. The real winner from yesterday's earnings, at least Google's earnings, was actually AVGO because Google did say they're looking to expand or uh, spend more in the direction, and AVGO would be the benefactor. Google is AVGO's biggest client. So this is a good move on AVGO. So out of Google get clapped, AMD gets clapped, and then you got AVGO just kind of running. So nice move on this one. It's already up $10 for the day. You are opening into a little resistance. Maybe wait for some chop, maybe a high wave candle. I think this is probably a retest gap into really, really good resistance. So I wouldn't mind the short side of this one, at least to look for it. I don't think I could buy it long here. If it ends up breaking up higher, look for like 237.94 as your next resistance on that one. All right, Google from M Sky. We got Google. Again, missed on the revenue by 215 million, which is fantastic. And then they did beat earnings per share, but only by a little bit. So if you're sitting at all-time highs, you've just been absolutely rampaged up higher. You can't have reports like that. You have to have absolutely incredible reports to just kind of maintain that momentum. Um, Somebody was asking me if we should maybe sell some puts on Google today. I don't, but do you? Do you? For me, I don't think so. We are still really, really high on a monthly chart. Like if we're looking at this thing, we haven't really come down a lot. Maybe if you could get a little bit further on a monthly chart into like 183.47, you could give it a shot. Otherwise, first spot I would consider is probably about 167.02. Even that, I'd be kind of nervous. Give me like this 150 zone again would be cool. I think better would be 167.80. Take a stab there. Have support of the 20. Have support of that hammer. This hammer was the retest here. You don't really want to see it break down. If it does, you're buying some puts and probably playing it a little bit further to the downside, which would have room somehow. I mean, that sounds weird, but all the way back to like 102. But it's just kind of hanging out there. Still very high priced. So I wouldn't personally be, for me, selling puts on this one. Doesn't mean that the put play can't work. We get some kind of bounce, but pretty decent gap and go from yesterday. Reminds me slightly of PayPal yesterday, but not quite. PayPal was gapping well below a decent move. This one's still hanging out at support again, kind of where it wants to open. It would be key. Your next support on this one, 190.78. We'll see if we can hold that. If you start breaking that, you got one more key support, 190.24. After that, you do have some room to the downside on this, all the way back to this 184.50. And you have some pressure from some bulls being trapped on this one, where that selling can pick up. So I'd be a cautious bear on this one. The one thing is obviously with this run, we just had all-time highs. Very favorable stock for the market right now. It's not like AMD, just you can't get the retail support. Google, I think, can. So I don't know if it's the easiest short, but I think I would lean in that direction. That being said, yeah, if we hang out here, you do have a little bit of risk reward to the bull side. So um, we'd have to watch how this one wants to open and kind of see maybe a 10 EMA play. Maybe there's a high wave we could kind of take advantage of. But I think it's a difficult short here on something like Google. I think people probably end up trying to buy the dip eventually, but you do have a lot of bulls traps. So I don't know. Snapchat reported really good earnings. Uh, yeah, for Snapchat, and they've been reporting good earnings. They like to step on their own toes though. So they beat by four, almost 5 cents earnings per share. They got $9 million revenue beat. They always come out. You have to if you're gonna play Snapchat, whatever that initial move is, like that's great. They've been doing well on earnings, but then they come in, their guidance is always a little lower. They're still spending a lot of. We'll see how they hang out here, but decent earnings, and you get the Snapchat effect where you usually have a lot of dip after the earnings come out, based on what they usually say. But that is the morning bell. So everybody in YouTube land, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe buttons if you have not done so already. Otherwise, we are about to be halfway through the